Hear you, hear you. Looks like we're ready to get the meeting started, and I will, from the chair's report, I will get up and have my minutes. Is Daryl Chapman on the phone?
Yes, I am here.
Welcome to a beautiful day. This is probably the most people we've had in a long time. Last time we were here in February, it was a little icy and cold outside, but we walked in this morning, and I walked in with Molly Aguilar, Chancellor from UMKC, and he made a comment about Memorial Union as we walked in the tower. And it dawned on me, and I thought, okay, the strength, which is my topic all year long, the strength has been with our leadership, and over the many, many years that the university has been here. I spoke in Rolla about when the curators first met, and it took them 4 days to get a quorum. I still don't know the answer of how they got to town, finally. But when we walked in and Chancellor Aguilar looked in the Memorial Union, it dawned on me and thought, okay, leadership. This Memorial Union was built in the early 1900s, was started. And it was addressed after World War I, what could we do, the university, to honor the fallen men from this university after World War I. So Memorial Union was started to be built. It took many, many years. The tower was built first, and the north section and the south section and the chapel later. It took many, many years. But if you take a look under the tower, there are 117 names encrypted into the stone of the people, the men from this university that lost their lives. Now, there are plaques down below in the lobby for those that lost their lives in World War II. So Memorial Union, again, back to the strength of our university and the decisions that were made by the board back then, still falls through today. And when we talk tomorrow about the groundbreaking of a new building, they'll look back many years and think of those, the decisions that were made today that's going to have impact forever. Another thing this morning that wasn't on my list is when my neighbor yelled at me, he said, hey, the NBA draft is tonight. Yeah, it is. And I didn't think about it, but we have a young man from Mizzou, Jonte Porter, hopes to get his name called tonight. So as I'm driving here, I'm thinking, gosh, it's exciting for Jonte. Hopefully he gets his name called. And I start thinking, well, we just had Sophie Cunningham, who was now playing in the WNBA. Her name was called. She's a Columbia young lady that decided to stay at Mizzou. We had Drew Lock from the NFL, Terry Beckner Jr., who Drew's a Kansas City kid, Lee Summit, Missouri native. Terry Beckner Jr. is a St. Louis product. Now it's East St. Louis, it says Illinois, but we're going to count him as one of ours. I started thinking back, and Daryl Chapman was with me at one of the commencements at Ag School. As some of the student athletes came across, and you get to shake their hands, I went to 5 of the commencements. We had 93 student athletes go across that graduated. Talking to the athletic department, our athletic grade point average in the spring was 3.11 for the entire athletic department. So, talk about strength. Those are the strengths we think about. Another one, strength is leadership. And to me, a strong university really helps our state. And I want to congratulate Moon Choi for winning the Cheng Li Tien Leadership in Education Award. It's in recognition of his academic accomplishments and his success in bringing greater unity and public trust in higher education in Missouri. We know President Choi is a great leader for us. He's gifted. We're proud that he's in our system and proud of the great work you're doing. Thank you. I keep talking about strengths. And what makes strengths is really the people. And if we think about the people, I've just mentioned student athletes. Now we've mentioned the president. I'd love to bring up the Curators Distinguished Professor Award winners. If they would all come up, please. Dr. Cheryl Black, Dr. Shi-Jian Cheng, Dr. Michael Davis, Dr. Thomas Spencer, and the infamous Wall family, Dr. James and Dr. Judy Wall. Could they come up, please? Professor Judy Wall joined MU Department of Biochemistry in 1978. Her outstanding contributions are recognized with many honors, such as being a Fellow of the American Association for Advancement of Science and a Fellow of the American Academy for Microbiology. Today, we recognize Dr. Wall for her service to MU and the designation of Curators Distinguished Professor Emerita. Professor James Wall joined the MU Department of Management in 1978. His research on conflict and negotiations is widely published, and he has won countless teaching, research, and service awards, including the MU Alumni Faculty Award. Today, we recognize Dr. Wall for his service to MU and the designation of Curators Distinguished Teaching Professor Emeritus. Dr. Thomas Spencer, Professor Thomas Spencer joined the MU Division of Animal Sciences in 2015. As an author of hundreds of research publications and journals, he is currently funded by over $10 million. This year, Dr. Spencer was elected by his peers to the National Academy of Science for outstanding contributions to reproductive biology research. Today, we recognize Dr. Spencer as Curator's Distinguished Professor. Dr. Michael Davis works in the department, Professor Michael Davis worked in the Department of Medical Pharmacology and Physiology. Since joining MU in 2005, he's published 91 research articles and is currently funded as a level matched by less than 1% of all NIH-funded investigators. Today, we recognize Dr. Davis as a Curator's Distinguished Professor. Professor Shi-Jian Cheng joined the Department of Physics and Astronomy here in 1999. He is a pioneer in the field of theoretical and computational biophysics and elected Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Today, we recognize Dr. Chen as a Curator's Distinguished Professor. I've already talked about really the strength of this university and the people. And I look at this screen and think of the groundbreaking that we're going to have tomorrow. And the leadership it took from our administration, from President Choi, from Dean LeBoa, Chair David Steelman a year ago pushed very hard for this project to get going and strong-armed the curators a bit. And with the groundbreaking ceremony tomorrow for the new Precision Health Facility, I wanted to spend a little time on why this initiative is one of the most effective ways we can leverage our combined strength to improve life in Missouri. Our university is home to world-class thought leaders and research scientists. We lead the nation in innovative partnerships with industry giants. Columbia is home to scientific resources that researchers around the world depend on to continue their work. By uniting these strengths toward the cause of precision health, we have the capability to grow new clinical technologies to market faster than any other institute in the country, meaning that we can change lives immediately, not in just some distant future. As stewards of major investments that Missourians have made over the years, it is also our duty to use our strength to help our community where they need it most. We've already seen that our reach and resources can respond quickly to urgent needs in our state. These past few months have seen some terrible destruction in our state, with major property losses due to widespread flooding and destructive tornadoes. I'll now turn things over to Chief Engagement Officer Marshall Stewart, who will talk about how the University of Missouri's strength is helping the state rebuild and go more forward. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to share a few things today. But I also want to start by saying thank you to our chancellors who have been incredibly important. Each of them have stepped forward with their institutions to help us in a time that's been very difficult for many Missourians. As I think most of you know, we've had a lot of water in the state. We've also had the destruction of tornadoes, and those things certainly have affected many lives. To give some context to this, the flood response obviously has been one of the things that's been on our minds. And I was even looking this morning at the rainfall north of us over the last 24 hours, and this is not going to let up. This is going to be a continuing thing for probably several more months to come. But I want you to look carefully at this as you see Extension, which we certainly are proud of, and the work they've done in these local communities, in particular in northwest Missouri, coming down through central Missouri, mid-Missouri, and also up in northeast Missouri. Incredibly important work that's been going on there. We also know that on May 23rd, Jefferson City in particular took a direct hit from a tornado. That tornado was devastating to that area, but we oftentimes have forgotten that earlier that evening, before it got to Jeff City, there were 3 Missourians who lost their lives in southwest Missouri. And that's something we all need to think about too, that while we celebrate the fact that we did not have loss of life there, in other parts of Missouri, it was devastating. And certainly we've seen the devastation that occurs. But the good news story in all this is, in spite of the destruction we saw, we have seen this university, not only our system, but our respective universities within the system, step forward in really 3 ways. The first way was an opportunity to give and or to serve. We immediately looked at different ways we could do this, and obviously we're not in the business of dispersing money and figuring out how to do that when it comes to these kinds of issues. So the first step we took was a coordinated effort with all the universities and their different leadership there to put together a package where we are now partnering with Feeding Missouri to allow ourselves to be a partner with them. We have a portal where people have given money, and in fact, to give you some context of this, at this point we have given, the amount of money we've given has allowed us to provide 60,000 meals to people in Missouri, and that's an incredible mark. It says a lot about our alumni, it says a lot about our faculty, our students, all of our stakeholders who've been very actively involved, and I appreciate the cooperation we've seen between the 4 institutions as they've all worked together to make this possible. We've also found ways to serve. Right now we have a team of folks that are looking very closely at how we can partner with various agencies. Again, we are not in the business of going in and working after the fact. That's not our expertise when it comes to helping to help these areas that have been flooded in particular clean up. But there are agencies that do that. So we're in the process of setting up a portal that again will allow our alums, our students, our faculty, our leadership, whoever wants to be involved, to know how to connect with the right agency so that their work can be meaningful and impactful in those communities. So that's going on. We also know that MU Extension is part of a national network. And I wanted to say this because I think sometimes this gets lost. We have a way in Extension with all our faculty and staff scattered throughout the state and dispersed throughout the counties to act immediately when these issues happen, and that's because we are a part of something called the Extension Disaster Education Network. EDEN is the acronym for it. And what it has done is allowed us to develop capacity not only in Missouri but nationally so that when these things happen, if it's a tornado, if it's a flood, if it's a hurricane in the southeastern part of the U.S. or wherever it may be, that our folks are poised and ready to go to work and help in that arena. So what you've seen is us working with state agencies, working with the governor's office, doing many different things to ensure that people get the resources they need. Sometimes we don't have all the answers, and that's not our job. Our job is to connect people with the right answers and ensure those communities, in particular in rural and small towns, which has been heavily hit by this flood, are able to do the things they need to do for those particular individuals impacted. We also have seen our university expertise come forward. I cannot get through all the list of things that faculty and staff have been involved in, but just to give you a few things to think about here. We've had, for instance, at the university level, our universities have been willing to do tuition assistance for those families directly affected and those families that meet certain criteria in terms of disaster hitting their own farm or their own local house or whatever it may be. So there's a tuition assistance approach that we have been able to do. We've seen our MU Healthcare pledge up to $50,000 to help with those who have been and had traumatic things happen in their lives, to help them in their lives. We've seen our athletics program step forward and do some fantastic things with student athletes going out and serving. We've seen our engineers from various universities help with things such as helping in terms of using drone technology and geospatial kinds of technologies that are so important in these kinds of situations. We've also seen our folks, even with space planning, go down and help in some of these communities, in particular in Jeff City, which was affected with such devastation. We've also seen folks working in areas like in climate change and dealing with issues that deal with those post-traumatic stress disorders come forward and be willing to help in terms of faculty expertise in so many of our institutions across our system. We've also seen folks that deal with water contamination and water issues that often affect these individuals. Again, faculty expertise going to work in these communities across all of our 4 institutions. We've also seen folks willing to go in and do those heavy lifting things when you just go in and help. You just literally show up and say, what can I do to help you today? So whether it be the expertise we're talking about at a very high level, which was discussed yesterday as Dr. McIntosh led the research symposium that went on, or whether it be on the ground, just immediately going in and putting a hand on someone's shoulder and saying, I'm there to help you and I'm with the University of Missouri or some part thereof, all of those things are important because it exemplifies what the public service mission of an institution like we are is all about. So you might ask the question, well, what happens going forward and how do we deal with this as we think about the future? Well, I've got a group of folks here and I want to ask them to stand. You can see if you folks would stand, our team out here, if you folks would stand. I want all of you to give these folks a big round of applause. They're the key. These folks have been incredibly important. Remain standing, don't sit down yet, and we've got a couple that couldn't be here today, but I really appreciate the way they've stepped forward. We've got Connie Burnham here. Connie, raise your hand. Connie serves as our state specialist in emergency management. I talked about the Eden Network a little earlier. She is the point person. When I arrived in Missouri and realized what this lady does, I was familiar with it in my former state. But you talk about somebody who gets in there with community and works with community partners. She serves and interacts with the governor's office and all those things I talked about earlier. Connie's a real star when it comes to helping us make sure that our people are well prepared to deal with these issues. Joe Lear serves in Northwest Missouri. He's our regional director. He is one of the individuals that's really had to help coordinate and truly be a consoling factor to many of the families and communities impacted. Allison Copeland could not be with us today. She's waiting on a plane to get her from Chicago here, so she's stuck there. But Allison's been really instrumental working along with Ashley Rohde. Ashley, raise your hand. I asked Ashley when this thing began to start and we saw it happening if she would be really the point person to coordinate this work across the system, and she stepped into that leadership role and done a beautiful job with that. James Preston, who is our Chief Development Officer in MU Extension Engagement, has done a wonderful job of working with our partners in development across the system to bring a coordinated effort to help us with Feeding Missouri. So James, thank you for your leadership. Tracy Feller is working with our partners on volunteer issues and has done a great job out of our office to bring together the right partners so that as we open up this portal to allow people to volunteer after the fact, that she'll be positioned to help you, guide you, and make that happen. I think John Warden, I don't know if John made it today, but John heads up our Center for Excellence in First Responder Education, which includes our fire and rescue training, law enforcement training, and also our emergency management response in extension. Really appreciate his leadership in trying to bring a coordinated effort to that. Sheena Rice, who's with us today. Sheena's been a critical part of this, and I wanted to kind of close with some statistics that not only Sheena, but also Katie Atkins have been really good at helping us put together. Katie's back there in the back. She didn't get up with the group, but both of them have been really key. And let me give you some sense of what we've had. We've had stories, videos, resource web pages resulting in 146,346 impressions and 6,322 social media engagements. And what that tells you is we've got an excellent response in terms of communication and outreach and communicating that image and that message out to those who want to help with this. And I really thank Cameron for her help and her leadership in that. We've also seen 997 stories appear in media as a result of press releases connecting reporters to the experts within our system. And that's really important. It's one thing to try to do it from out, but when you've got media calling in, it makes it much easier flow. So I thank them for their help. So again, you guys can sit down now. I've had you up long enough. But I really appreciate all that's been done. And to let you know about going forward, one of the things that happens sometimes when you have a crisis is you say, what could we do better next time? And we're in that process now, even though this one's not over. And I've asked our president and also our chancellor if they were okay, and I know our colleagues at other universities would be as well. We're going to maintain this inventory of expertise we have. I've asked Ashley to really lead that for us. We're going to be putting together a team that will stay sort of together and intact so that as these things occur, because it's not a question of if, it's when they will occur. There will be other things that come. We want to be in a better position to be responsive, to be agile, and to be able to do the things we need to do for all Missourians. So I thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope that does what you wanted me to do in less than 5 minutes.
No better way to end the chair report than that. And again, it's obvious that a strong university just helps our state and the people of the state. So Marshall, thank you very much. Now for the President's report, President Moon Choi.
Well, thank you very much. Continuing on the theme of strength, I want to recognize some outstanding faculty members that were selected as part of the Presidential Award for Excellence. Faculty members are selected from all 4 universities, but we're going to be recognizing faculty members at their campuses. So if I can ask them to come and stand next to the curator, that'll be great. First is Professor Guang Bian from Physics and Astronomy. And during his 6-year career after receiving his PhD, he has already published 60 journal articles. So thank you. Next is Keith Herman from the School of Education, and he is focused on research on developmental pathways related to depression. And during his career, he has published over 120 articles. Next is Professor Ben Trachtenberg from the School of Law, and he is being recognized for providing outstanding, really exemplary leadership during a period of turmoil at the university when he served as a faculty chair between 2015 to 2017. So thank you. Next is Professor Joseph Erb, and he's part of the digital storytelling faculty members, and he promotes the visibility and inclusion of Native American culture and languages and brings that digital storytelling together with indigenous perspectives. And through his work with Apple, Google, Facebook, and others, he ensures that the Cherokee language is accessible across technological platforms. Next is Professor Johannes Schul, and he's been instrumental in overhauling undergraduate curriculum to focus on teaching students to think integratively across biological levels and recruiting and retaining students in the biological sciences. He also helped to secure a highly competitive $1 million Howard Hughes Medical Institute Inclusive Excellent Grant. Thank you. You may have a seat. Thank you. No, you have two more. So the next award is a very special award that we call the Thomas Jefferson Award for Excellence. And this is provided to an individual who goes above and beyond in seeking excellence in research, teaching, and engagement. The professor that has received it, that will receive it this year, is Professor Carol Ward. And she is she's an internationally recognized faculty member who studies the origin of humans. And using her paleo approaches, her project working in West Turkana has educated thousands of Kenyan students and built 2 new schools in rural Kenya. Thank you very much for your contributions, not only in Missouri, but throughout the world. Thank you. These are 4 faculty members who received the Presidential Award for Excellence at Mizzou, but they could not attend today's celebration, but let's also congratulate them as well. Thank you. Next up, it's a very special award that we call the Bryce Ratchford Award, and this is in recognition of a former president at the University of Missouri. His background was in extension. He came from North Carolina State, like someone else that I know in extension, but he's really served the university with a great deal of visionary leadership. And for that, we're honoring his legacy by providing the C. Bryce Ratchford Award. This year, the award goes to Daniel Orther. Daniel Orther is a faculty member at Missouri S&T in the Department of Environmental Engineering. But he's a truly interdisciplinary scientist. In fact, one of his awards has been to be accepted as a fellow of the American Association of Nursing, and that's very interesting. But as you see from the picture there, his work on creating new approaches for treating water that can be used in developing country has made important breakthroughs, not only in practical applications, but also in training students how to care for the environment. So, Daniel, thank you very much. So as you realize, our university is really fortunate to have some outstanding faculty members who transform our institution through their education, research, and engagement. One of our goals with the Presidential Engagement Fellows is to share that knowledge throughout the state of Missouri, especially in rural parts of the state, so we can share that story about what we do and the impact that we make. These are the representatives that represent the best faculty members who can translate the research and teaching into a way that common people, lay people can understand so that they see the benefits of what we do at the university. So we have many of them joining us today, so may I ask them to stand and be recognized? Thank you. We look forward to learning more about your work, so thank you very much. We also have 2 new leaders joining the university. The first is Mo Degani, and he will assume the role of Chancellor of Missouri S&T on August 1st. I don't believe he is here, but he joins us from Stevens Institute of Technology, and he is an internationally recognized engineer who's worked on very diverse projects related to satellites as well as nuclear arm production. So let's give him a round of applause. The next person is here. His name is Matt Gunkel, and he joins us from Indiana University, and he is going to be serving as the inaugural Chief E-Learning Officer. Matt, are you here? Matt, thank you. And as many of you know, we have some bold goals for e-learning, and the goal is to have 25,000 new learners taking e-learning courses from the university by 2025. That's a tall lift, but we have people here who are going to support you. So Matt, thank you for joining us. All right, next, I want to give you an update of our performance at the university. This is a process that we've been using to use data to understand how we are performing in the areas of research and student success. The first data that I want to share with you talks about the importance of research, funded research at the university. And the research expenditures are the most important values that we use at public or private research university to demonstrate our ability in garnering those nationally competitive projects. As you see from this slide, we've had some slight increases at Mizzou, significant increases at UMKC and UMSO, and a slight decrease at Missouri S&T. But the important thing to recognize is to look into the future. Some of the expenditures that you see here occurred because of projects that were received several years ago. So the leading indicators that demonstrate the growth in research really comes from awards. And at Mizzou, the award increase has been significant. We've seen some decreases in the awards at UMKC and at UMSL, but Missouri S&T has also seen a significant increase in research awards. Another very important leading indicator is proposals. How are you doing in proposals? Now, you may look at this and say, why aren't our faculty members writing the number of proposals that they need to? Well, faculty members are really involved in writing the research proposals, but it's really incumbent upon us as administrators to provide the opportunities, incentives, and the support. So we're going to be working together collectively. But I just have to say that the growth in research proposal at Mizzou under the leadership of the Chancellor, Chancellor Cartwright, as well as Vice Chancellor Mark McIntosh, has been very impressive, very impressive. We need to continue this momentum so that we can grow the research programs that demonstrate the value that we provide beyond education to this state. We are the only public research university in the state of Missouri, and so we need to demonstrate that combination of teaching excellence as well as research excellence. At the university, research really does have to have a translational component. The research that is important in writing journal articles are important for foundational excellence. But beyond that, how do we create economic development? So in a recent ranking of top universities that produce intellectual property and patents, the UM system ranked number 60 in the entire, 60, not just in the United States, but in the entire world. And if you look at where we stand, we're only 2 behind Penn State, and we are ahead of very large public research universities like Texas A&M and Missouri Michigan State. So in terms of philanthropic contributions, I've said it over and over again that we can't just rely on state support. We have to have new sources of revenue that may come from innovative curriculum, that may come from e-learning, or it can also come from philanthropic contributions. I'm very happy to report that all 4 universities have seen significant increases in philanthropic contributions. Now, this is also very important because philanthropic contributions can also be seen as a proxy for appreciation as well as the quality of the programs that we offer. So this is a measure that we're very pleased that we have seen increases, but we need to continue to move our university forward in creating more philanthropic opportunities. Student success, what I want to talk about today is the significant growth in the students who've been accepted at the University of Missouri. If you combine all of the acceptances this year compared to last year for the entire system, we are up. That is very important. But the first number that I want to demonstrate to you that is of great importance is that increase in acceptances this year at Mizzou. During the past 2 years, there's no other university that I know in the United States that has seen the dramatic increase in enrollment. This took a lot of work. This took a coordinated approach leading from the chancellor all the way down to faculty members and staff who understood the importance of this increase. What this demonstrates to the state and the country in the larger part is that Mizzou is back. We are back to where we were back in the 2014-2015 timeframe. It also demonstrates the confidence that the students and the parents feel about the university. So I want to congratulate the hard work at Mizzou. There's some more work to do, but it's not for lack of trying. Competition for students is very dramatic, not only in this state, but across the United States. So we're going to have a more concerted, focused effort to grow enrollment at all 4 universities because of the value that we provide in terms of a high-quality, affordable education. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor and I, Chancellor Cartwright and I, attended a meeting of APLU presidents. And there was an interesting presentation that talked about the current statistics on debt that students incur while attending university. And what I've shown here is the total amount of debt that is accrued by individuals in different categories. So let me try to explain this to you. On the first part of that slide, it says that 18% of students who incur debt have about 1% of the total student debt. At the bottom, it says that 2% of the students who incur debt have over 14% of the total debt. So if you combine some of these numbers, what it shows is that the low end, 56% of all the borrowers hold only 15% of the total debt. At the high end, 14% of the borrowers hold over 50% of the debt. So we have this barbell situation. We have many students who attend university who incur very low debt. We also have a small group of students who incur a large percentage of that debt. I mean, when you have a debt over $200,000, imagine with a debt like that, and you start out in a discipline or a profession that doesn't have a high salary, it'll take years to pay that back. The reason that this is also very important is if we look at the next slide. This slide shows from 1995 to 2011, the student loan default rates 2 years after graduation or 2 years after leaving the university. And what it shows in 1995, that the loan default rate of those students that graduated is at 9%. But loan default rate of those students who didn't graduate, it's at 20%. But look what has happened over the years. Back in 2009, you could see 8% of the students who graduated defaulted, but 30% of those students who didn't graduate defaulted. So this is why it's so important for all of us as academic leaders, faculty, and staff to focus on graduation rate. A student who graduates with debt, without a degree, is going to be in a worse position than they were when they began at the university. And that's why we take student success so seriously at the university. A few more charts I want to share with you. This is the debt incurred by students who are earning a bachelor's degree in 2015-2016. As you can see from here, we have all students, public 4-year, private nonprofit 4-year, and for-profit university. You can see the distribution. And what you notice here is that 31% of students who attend public 4-year universities who graduate have 31% of those students have no debt at all. Now, we are going to be developing this data for all 4 universities, but I know that in the College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources at this university, 46% of the students graduate with no debt. So we want to be in that high spectrum of students who graduate with very little debt or no debt, but whatever the measures are going to be, we want to keep reducing that cost of education for our students. But that cost of education is not just tuition. As this chart shows from the same meeting, over the past 10 years, you could see the increase in college tuition. It's been very high. Part of that increase is because many of the public 4-year universities have seen reductions in state appropriations. But what's been even higher in terms of that rate of growth is college textbooks. And I can share with you that the University of Missouri system is on the leading edge of providing low-cost or free textbooks for our students. Typically, students spend about $1,200 per year for textbooks at a university. But we're going to do whatever we can to encourage faculty members to adopt low-cost or free textbooks to help reduce that cost of education. Now, at a university, obviously, we do a lot of teaching in the laboratory, teaching in the classroom, and a lot of mentoring. But beyond that, the experiential component has become more and more important. That idea that we learn better by doing is so critical to the education that students receive at all 4 of our universities. At the April meeting of Missouri S&T, we had a student who came and gave her pitch about developing a LinkedIn type of a platform to allow those students with handicaps or those students who have some inability to do certain tasks that a person who has their full capacity can do. And that was really a breakthrough presentation. What we now want to do is introduce 2 students, and they're Tiana Bass and Libby Martin from Mizzou, who participated in the same program to provide an update on their pitch for innovation and entrepreneurship at the university. So with that, may I ask Tiana Bass. Tiana? Come on up. Thank you. Can you introduce yourself?
So, hello everyone. My name is Tiana Bass. I'm a recent graduate of the university. So there's that. I graduated with my degree in textile and apparel management with double minors in business administration and entrepreneurship. So Sweet Tea Cosmetics is the business that I started. Sweet Tea Cosmetics was located in the Student Center through the Missouri Entrepreneur Program for the Missouri Method. And so through that, I was able to get my start with Sweet Tea Cosmetics, and then through the entrepreneurship quest, I was able to go ahead and advance that. And so Sweet Tea Cosmetics is a fresh, modernistic, conscious, and inclusive makeup brand that's dedicated to serving face to everyone. And so how many people in this room actually use Amazon Prime? Or how many people use Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes? Typically, everybody uses about a subscription service. So that proves my point about us living in a subscription economy. And so basically what that means is us as consumers would much rather have recurring purchases rather than making an outright purchase every time and having to constantly think about it. We would much rather it be easy and more lax than a little bit more complex and a little bit more frustrating. And so a couple of facts that I gathered along my time trying to prove this point is $2.6 billion. So in 2011, the subscription e-commerce market was $57 million, and then it grew to $2.6 billion. So the market has expanded. And then also 60% of beauty and wellness subscription services account for the 3 of the top 5 companies. So lots of opportunity. But there are 0 that are ethnically focused and actually focused on underrepresented or marginalized communities. And so that's where Sweet Tea Cosmetics come in. So Sweet Tea Cosmetics, while still in its early phases, aims to serve a community that it loves best. It's a fresh, modernistic, and conscious, inclusive brand that will basically serve as a light for a lot of other people. And so these are a couple of statistics that we have found on our social media accounts and other platforms that we serve on. And so Sweet Tea Cosmetics, we found that our demographic looks like 75% of those that engage with our brand are college students. So that's 18 to 24-year-olds. Most of them are women, 73% of them in that age range are women. Our reach in our audience is about 1,300 daily. And then we have an approximate number of 21,000 that view our platform weekly. And then 2 out of 3 of them are a part of marginalized communities. And so then with Sweet Tea Cosmetics, we look to see what our competitors look like and who actually does the beauty subscription boxes. And the top 3 competitors were Deck of Scarlet, Ipsy, and Birchbox. And the reason why we chose these 3 is because they are top 3 in that market. However, they only serve pre-selected items. They are typically anywhere between $10 a month to $29 a month. And they don't necessarily offer the option of personalization. And so Sweet Tea Cosmetics is a little bit better in the stance where we're sustainable. So the cosmetics that we use are sourced from Canada, and Canada has the highest level of quality when it comes to cosmetics. And so cruelty-free, biodegradable products, as well as non-comedogenic, so they don't clog the pores. They're very non-toxic and paraben-free. Hypoallergenic as well, so they're safe and sustainable. They're affordable because each single item is as low as $9.99 for the consumer and not just for us. They're easy and inclusive because makeup is art and what is seen today, and that's just one thing a lot of people like to express themselves through, and they kind of manifest themselves through makeup. And so that's one thing. And then the personalization, you get to choose what's actually in your kit versus the pre-selective items that most platforms give you. And so with that, we also had a revenue model that we set up. And so these were a couple of things that we were looking into. And so the subscription, we were thinking about a monthly fee, and then monetize based off of ad revenue and tutorials. So for example, Instagram has a platform where you have IGTV, which is simple as like ads on television. So it's the same thing as that, as well as full catalog of products available a la carte, meaning that you also have the subscription box, but you also have the availability to buy the product singular. And then this is for example, so say we have 3,000 social media followers, and the estimated growth rate is about however much. So if we basically charge $15 a month for our beauty box, and we have 3,000 followers, we can have a total of $45,000 in revenue possibly. And so this is also our startup cost and how we basically came to that. Monthly subscription fee for us, for a website startup, would be about $99, 100-piece lot of sew, however many packaging. And then we basically added it up to get like a small amount of number. The cost for just one subscription box was typically the startup cost for all in all was very cheap for us. And so that was pretty much it. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when do you graduate? What do you plan to do now that you graduated?
So I actually have my second round interview with Girl Boss, which was founded by Sophia Amoruso, who's actually a CEO in herself. And so Girl Boss is a platform that serves women in business and basically acts as an empowerment tool and platform in a media company. So I'm looking to be an operations associate with them.
Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. The next person that's going to be presenting is Libby Martin, and she graduated from agriculture, is now a student in vet medicine, and her project, Libby, are you here? Her project is basically Fitbit for cows.
Again, like you said, my name is Libby Martin, and I'm a current second-year veterinary student and the founder of Calving Technologies. Thank you. So it's our mission to provide cattle producers with affordable and durable technology that will increase producer profits and decrease calf mortality rates. So what exactly is the problem? Well, the problem is there are 31.7 million beef cows in the U.S. alone, and of those born, 10% will die from dystocia, which is just a fancy word for calving difficulty. And when we think in terms of our producers who are feeding the world, that's a huge loss in terms of production. So for each calf, it's around a $500 loss, and for each cow, it can be upwards of $1,500. It's actually a photo of me last month bottle feeding a calf back at home. We lost the cow during calving season. There are several biomedical changes and parameters that occur right before first phase calving. So if we can track those physiological changes, we can solve the problem. And so that's exactly what we are trying to do right now. So we have produced a rechargeable, reusable collar system that tracks feed intake, body temperature, heart rate, activity levels, and the cow's position relative to the rest of the herd. This is actually our second phase prototype that we produced. We took this and put it on pregnant cows and did some data collection to see if we could prove out our concept and if we could actually collect valuable data, and we were able to do that. We did that through a particle platform, so our engineer used this board that was connected to full cellular data, and we were able to bring in different biomedical parameter data points. And so this is how it works. We put it on the cow and it's connected to cellular network, and we can push that information to the console. So this is an example of what our interface originally looked like. You could see where the cow was and any changes that occurred in all of those things that I mentioned before. We wanted to take it a step further to see if we could do this on a production scale, and we were able to do that. We're utilizing Google platforms now, and this is just a snapshot of what that looks like as that data is coming in and we're collecting it real time. A lot of people will ask me, how are you going to provide this to people who are living out in rural areas with low connectivity? And the answer is a LoRa mesh network. So basically these collars, they make a network within themselves via a hub, and then we can secure that data collection even in these low connectivity areas. So current management practices, this is a paper towel that I found in my brother's truck, and these are his notes. His real notes of our cows that were calving this past season. Number 44, close to calving. We want to eliminate this. This is not effective. And in terms of competition, we have two out on the market right now, one being Moo Call and the other being Herd Dog. So Moo Call is a tail counting device, and the AirTag does temperature tracking. And so these are very expensive systems for these producers. Not a lot of people implement them due to the cost of just even setting it up. So we want to be the first to penetrate the market with this focused algorithm that provides a calving prediction score for each animal, and that's exactly where our value proposition lies. We're utilizing science and technology to create these birth scores for these animals so that these producers know the status of their cows at any given moment and are receiving alerts if something changes. In terms of our market opportunity, we've got a huge market. The beef is the largest sector of agriculture, and so as you can see, since 2000, we haven't really dwindled in our production, and on the past couple of years, we've been on the rise. We're sitting at 27 to 28 billion pounds of beef being produced in the U.S. each year, and with organic markets and different things like that, we're on the rise. In terms of our financial revenue model, we're actually going to provide our beta at a cost to producers who've been lining up and asking to participate in that. And then we'll be selling our sensory modules in an open platform hardware system through a subscription, monthly subscription. And then if we take a look at our financial projections, you can see here, if we just, for example, take that 3.2 million calves that are dying each year just to this problem, and we put a collar on their mother and penetrate just that market alone at just 0.5%, we're generating around $800,000. And then if you even look at just 10% of that, that's $16 million. So, and that's with our expenses taken out. It's going to cost us around $30 to produce these collars. For our milestones, we've partnered with a company called Scholar, and they're providing us with the hardware components. So Calving Technologies is perfecting the sensory module, and we partnered up with them. They did all of the hardware for us. In the past about couple of months, we've been contacted by some really awesome animal health companies, and then we've locally done a lot of partnerships with like Ready Hub, Missouri Innovation Center, some super awesome resources that have just really helped us launch. It's been great. And then, of course, EQ. And then with that, I came up with this concept in 2015. I grew up on a small Charolais cattle farm, and I was really noticing how detrimental it was to our small family business in terms of calf loss. And so I started calling vets and different farm stores and asking if there was a solution or if anybody had any suggestions, just to get the answer no. So that was really when I really started to dig into research and ask professors here at the University of Missouri and just kind of engage the idea of finding a solution, and it's kind of developed into this. Scott Christensen is our technical advisor. He's spearheaded prototype development. Scholar, like I mentioned before, that's Lisa and John. They did the open hardware platform system for us. And then just recently, big update since EQ, because EQ allowed us to do that, we've brought on Mike Zadowakowski, who is working with Acorn Analytics out of and he's doing all of our second phase product development for production scaling. And so thank you to EQ for that. And with that, I will answer any questions, but I also just want to say thank you guys for all you do in supporting us and student success. Thanks.
Don't go yet. So what do you plan to do after graduation?
I thought I knew the answer to that, and things have kind of changed. So I have 2 more years left in vet school, and so ideally I would like to stay super involved with calving tech and maybe serve as a veterinarian for that. But I'm really looking into mixed animal practices or serving even for like the USDA as a veterinarian there. The options are just so endless. I'm still kind of working on the end goal.
That's great. Let's give him another round of applause. Tiana and Libby, thank you. Thank you. And those are the kinds of experiential learning opportunities that we provide at the university, and we will continue to do so into the future. The last item that I do want to talk about is the very important engagement week, and that'll be during the week of October, where each of the campuses will be featuring some of their best work and engaging with not only the local community, but communities throughout Missouri. A keynote lecture will be provided by a graduate of University of Missouri-Columbia, Dr. Robert Jones, who received his PhD here back in the 1970s, and he serves as a chancellor at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. There is another special guest lecturer, but we're going to wait until the summer to make that announcement. So that concludes my report, Chairman.
Very much. Next, normally we would have the student rep to the board, Avery Welker, but due to it's summertime, students are gone. We're going to wait for his report in September.
Stay tuned.
Okay. We'll review the consent agenda. You have all of that in your packet. You received any questions on consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We'll move on next to the Finance Chair report. Chair Burnsick will give us that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. The Finance Committee approved 3 action items during its June 11, 2019 Finance Committee meeting. First, Vice President Ryan Rapp provided the University of Missouri fiscal year 2019 operating budget and 5-year financial plan. As you will recall, Ryan and Charles Kim, representative from Kaufman Hall, previewed the plans at the April 11th meeting. The committee has approved a $3.5 billion fiscal year 2020 operating budget, as well as a 5-year financial plan, as outlined in your materials for this board meeting. Each of our campuses are expected to have an annual revenue growth rate between 2 to 5%. Executing on these plans will ensure the mission of the university is supported in a financially sustainable manner. Revising and adopting financial policies that reinforce a culture of accountability at each campus, including a system of incentives and consequences, will be a critical next step. The Finance Committee unanimously approved the fiscal year 2019 operating budget and 5-year financial plan as outlined in the June Board of Curators mailing materials. Ryan and Charles will provide a brief presentation to the full board and be available for any questions board members might have.
Thank you, Curator Burnsick. We'll get started here. I'll provide some context, and then we wanted to have Charles here with us today to also provide some perspective from the work they've done with us over the last year. When we started this process, really what we were thinking about is how do we want to approach financial planning? And we had several questions we were asking ourselves, but really wanting to move to what I would call an enterprise approach and thinking about it in terms of not how do we think about the annual budget, but what is the level of financial performance that we need from the university to deliver on the mission. So there were definitely some questions that we wanted to ask ourselves, but if you're asking why is this different, I already kind of alluded to it, but I think in the past when we came up and we presented budgets, we were really focusing on how do we balance the budget. While we don't need an operating margin to pay to shareholders, we do need a certain level of operating margin to make the investments in the things that are important, such as research, scholarships. Those are the reasons we need those, and we know that healthy academic institutions are the ones that can perform financially. And so when we think about it, and we heard the theme from the chair and the president this morning of strength, we're really wanting to approach financial planning from a position of strength. We talked about, well, what does that mean and how do we think about this? We wanted to establish metrics and targets, and this was in our April materials. And I want to be clear with the plan that we'll be presenting here today. If we deliver on that, we believe it would most likely maintain our credit rating. What we're really trying to say is if there was ever a reason for us to want to erode our financial performance, we believe that is something that we would bring to the board and the president. That would be an intentional strategic decision that we make. It wouldn't be something that would just happen to us because we stood by and watched. So I think that is one question the board has to think about. Is there ever a strategic investment that would justify being below the target? Curator Burnsick alluded to it. It's what are the actual incentives and then consequences and periods for correction if we have over or underperformance. What we have updated since the April meeting is, if you look at line 1, is what is the annual revenue growth that's necessary to deliver on these plans. You've heard me talk a lot over the last year about the need for revenue growth. You've heard the president talk about it as well. I think if you look at this, when we went through it, this kind of establishes what we're going to need from every campus in terms of revenue growth. And we sat down, and this really was a function of what were their strategic initiatives, what are the operating initiatives they have underway, and then really that just provides you with, well, to deliver on those, this is the level of operating revenue growth you can see. While we think these plans have some risk in them, we do think these are things that over time are achievable. I think the other difference I would offer in this approach is in the past, what we may have presented as a budget, I'm not going to say it had zero risk in it, but we usually would hit the budget, overperform the budget. What we're trying to do here is perform to what the financial plan is. So just like any enterprise, it's not risk-free. There will be course corrections that we have to take throughout the year. Really, the work that has occurred since April is we presented the baseline financial projections. I think you probably remember that's the clamshell chart that shows the operating gap that we had to close. I'm hoping that's really the last time that we continue to bring that type of chart forward to the board. With the work we did here was how do we close that gap? And so we'll go through that, but we did work with each of the campuses, working with the chancellors and the provost and the CFOs. I want to be clear, this doesn't replace our annual budgeting process. It really is that linkage between, we have our strategic plan, we have a financial plan, and then we have an annual budgeting process that we do. But I think this was something that was missing, and it will really help inform that annual budgeting process, so we won't be in a position where we're saying every spring, what do we think the budget's going to be? We'll know what we need to be working on, and sure, we'll need to adapt to that as we go throughout the year. But they did go in and we did cost and look at the revenue side of this, and I think that was probably the thing we learned through this exercise. I'd offer that higher education institutions are pretty good at determining the cost of initiatives. We're maybe not as good as we need to be yet in understanding what the revenue potential is that goes along with those initiatives. So that was something we really pushed ourselves hard on as we went through that. With that, I'll turn it over to Charles to kind of walk through some of the specific things that are included in the plan and provide his perspective as well.
Good afternoon. First, want to say I'm super excited to be here. It's been a real privilege to work with the members of the entire system, the campuses, the provosts, the chancellors, the finance and budgeting officers. It was a real team approach in developing this plan, and while we only have several slides that summarize this, there was a lot of collective thought, discussions that went into this to develop the plan itself, and there are probably hundreds of tactics below this, strategic as well as operational, that are really baked into the numbers that I'm about to share with you. And I'm really excited because it's really about growth, right? So we have a strategic plan that has a lot of important elements that emphasizes growth, and I think this plan itself really does show the collective thoughts of all of the individual leaders of the campuses and the system as well to really focus on revenues and drive growth for the institution. Ultimately, to enhance the financial position of the institution so that it could continue to serve the mission across the state and nationwide. So just a few elements and highlights. New revenues, as I said, are vital to improve financial performance. As I work across the country, I don't need to state to this group, but there are a lot of pressures. As Dr. Choi talked about, a lot of states are cutting state appropriations or keeping those flat, right? There's pressures to keep tuition prices at an affordable rate, right? So your ability to increase that and use that as a financial lever is certainly diminished, right? So a lot of institutions are focusing on cutting, getting smaller, and really looking at the expense side of this. And in the long run, expense management is great, but ultimately you can't shrink your way to success. So I think one of the things that I'm very excited about this financial plan is the emphasis on revenues and the growth that we're gonna see as long as we execute on this. So just some highlights. Tuition revenues are forecasted to increase $100 million over a 5-year period through enrollment growth, new programs, improved retention, scholarships, all those things coming together at the campuses to drive tuition revenue growth. Clinical revenues are obviously a very important part of the enterprise here, and there's about $140 million of new revenue from variety of strategies. Private gift and philanthropy is an important component of this as well, expected to more than double from fiscal 18 to 2023. And there's a clear linkage here in the financial plan to the strategic plan itself, the system strategic compacts, funding for student success, research, engagement, TPMC and the expenditures and the operating impacts of all of that is also included in here as well. There are some expense efficiencies, but it's not a major component of this, right? This is not a plan contingent upon reduction. It's a plan contingent upon growth. But at the same time, we recognize that expense reductions, being efficient with the resources that we have, is part of everyday operations, something that we need to focus on. So we have some of that built in as well here. Ryan talked about this. Financial performance will depend on culture of accountability. So the worst thing that can happen with this plan is that we present it here and it sits on the shelf until next year. This has to be a living and breathing process where we take the collective thoughts and the ideas of everybody involved and really use this as a platform to drive future growth and financial performance. Some of these initiatives that we identified, and there's hundreds of these, some are preliminary. These are thoughts and ideas we need to develop, get teams together, sharpen our pencils, and add some more meat to this, and really execute over the next few years. We feel that these are reasonable. Some are aggressive, partially because they're in early stages. But I think with a lot of hard work and everybody at the table together and thinking collectively, I really do think some of these initiatives are executable. Some of these expenses, we're gonna manage that. So we're gonna constantly align revenues and the fruition of some of the growth that we've baked in here, and align to the extent that they're delayed, or maybe some of them don't turn out as we first thought. We're gonna align expenses to that as well, but we're still gonna focus on growth. And there's many difficult decisions ahead. This is a plan as we sit here today, but there's gonna be other investments that the system's going to need to make. There are potentially other challenges that will come our way, but we'll really use this plan and compare everything to this plan to say, are we executing upon some of the targets and the results that I will show you in a few minutes. So this is one of the results that I wanted to share with you. So this is operating surplus. So this is operating income. So essentially, it's all your revenues less expenses. So in the blue here, we have historical trend from 2014 to 2018 for the entire system. Has generally ranged from $150 to $182 million. 2019 through 23 is our go forward or projected look. The blue is the baseline, and the baseline obviously shows an unsustainable trend. Okay? So all of the thinking that we did, all the planning that we did, bringing in all the strategic ideas, the incremental impact of all of that is in the green bar there. Okay? And you can see by the time we get out to 2023, those new ideas, those new initiatives, the new revenues that we're going to collect as an institution, that's what's going to drive the financial performance. That's what's going to drive the growth, and that is what's going to financially position the institution to continue to fulfill its mission. So it's a nice trajectory, right? So it's by the time we get out to 2023, it's going to be above and beyond what we've done the last few years. That's the level of performance that's going to be required, as Ryan talked about, to continue to fulfill our mission. So operating performance is really important. So I'm going to continue here, and this is just the margins. So as you see, 2021, 2023, we go above sort of the targets that we thought were important, and we exceed that. While financial performance, operating margin is important, balance sheet is really, really important as well. So the balance sheet includes such items as cash, investments, capital expenditures, debt, and when tough times come, when turbulence is there, any institution needs a strong balance sheet to be able to withstand challenges and pressures, and also create capacity and resource capacity to continue to invest during those challenging times. And it's a real safety net for any type of an organization. So the plan itself and the operating performance that we've projected also yields a very strong balance sheet. And there's several measures that we show here. A couple of them are related to liquidity. Liquidity is really, really important. Tough times hit, can you continue to support the expenses? Can you continue to make the investments that you need to make as an institution? Top left, your spendable cash and investments to operating expenses is a generally accepted measure of liquidity in this industry. Greater than 1 times is the target that we have here in order to for the institution. As you see, if we hit on our plans, 2022, 23, we're at 1.1, 1.16 times. very solid safety net and resources available for the institution to do more exciting things 5 years from now, okay? And it also provides cushion. So to the extent that we can't hit on some of those initiatives and they don't come true, as Ryan talked about, there's risk, there's some cushion on the balance sheet as well. Okay, so that's really exciting for me. And then in terms of the ability to service debt, that is a very important component of any not-for-profit and the way to fund some of the investments. And so a lot of the debt ratios that we see here, whether that's spendable cash and investments to debt service coverage or debt to cash flow, those also exceed the targets that we've established here. So I'm very excited about this plan. It took a lot of hard work, but I think it provides a very nice roadmap for the institution. And there's going to be a lot of work to execute on this, but it's a clear roadmap, and I think it's a really good starting place.
Yeah, just, we'll wrap up here and on this slide.
The answer is not yet.
Yes.
We have to wait.
I apologize. I want to really drive home what Charles was pointing to is if we just leave here today and we say the work's done, I think the work's just getting started. But we should leave here today with the confidence of there is a plan. Now we need to go execute on that plan and continue to work at some of the things that we'll be doing and we'll be bringing forward to the board in our September meeting is looking at what our current financial planning policies are, and then how do we incorporate this target management, accountability, use of reserves. We already have policies around debt and budgeting, but how do we change those? The other thing that we want to do is this will be something that we bring forward every year to the board. It will be a continuous process, but we really want to move this to the fall time frame. That really lines up well then with kind of our annual budgeting exercise. And where I want to articulate that this is very different than our budgeting exercises, that is really something that we go out to the organization and ask everyone kind of from the bottom up the organization to put their plans together. This is really at the leadership level of saying what are the broad initiatives that we think we're going to try to execute on over the next couple of years, and then how does that inform that process? So we will be moving this to the fall. The other thing is I think, again, the initiatives that are in the plan today are good, but we will need to continue to refine those. You'll also see when we come forward with our capital plans, what you didn't see in here, but the capital, when we do that process, we will be able to clearly say this is what is in our financial plan. So these projects are projects that we plan for and we think we can do within our current capital capacity. And then we'll have a list of here are projects that we would like to do, but they're aspirational projects at this point in time. So those are the real key next steps for us as we work through those. And Charles and I are happy to take any questions now.
So my question really is, can you briefly summarize the initiatives that you're talking about that are, let's say, our increased margin is dependent upon? And in particular, because you have knowledge of other universities' plans and the zero sum of enrollment possibilities in higher education, what is our assumption with respect to enrollment, and how does that compare to other universities that you have done work for in, say, the last year?
Yeah, I mean, there's several initiatives that'll drive enrollment. A lot of it is around scholarship compact and the funding to bring additional students. It's around retention. It's around new programs, right? That has attractiveness in the marketplace. So as I compare this plan to a lot of other institutions, like you said, it's a zero-sum game, right? Competition for students is intense. So there is risk in some of this, and you have to really collectively as an institution, as Dr. Choi talked about earlier during his talk, it's the responsibility of everybody in the institution to be execute on that. But that said, I think it's a doable plan. It's not moving, your enrollment growth to double-digit levels. If you look at the total revenue growth, it's 2 to 5%. It's a fairly conservative plan, and I think relative to other universities, yes, there's competition, but we didn't build in anything that's significantly risky or not attainable. Talk about some of these.
I think Charles touched on it. The largest, at least on the academic side, that is underwriting this is enrollment growth and really looking at what we can drive through the scholarship compacts. To his point, it's roughly 2 to 5% across the campuses. While I think that's maybe aggressive relative to some of the historical trends, I don't think, we didn't put a plan together that said we're going to go enrollment by 15% over the next 5 years. I think some of it is, hopefully we can do a lot of work with we have the brand strength to go do that. It will be competitive, and it's something that we're going to have to watch as the plan. The largest piece of what's driving the plan on the academic side.
So, Curator Phillips, we recognize that the number of high school graduates in the region has hit its plateau. So while we try to get additional students by getting more market share, that's an important factor. But if we take a university like UMKC, they have about 8,000 undergraduate students, but students graduate at about a 50% rate. So a big focus on our enrollment growth is retaining the students that we have through student success collaborations, by providing increased scholarships for those students and providing better advising support. So it's going to be a combination of retaining and growing new students to come to the university.
As we look through the plan and kind of look at where is a lot of the positive financial performance coming from, it comes from student success and then academic program prioritization. And really, that is being driven by what are the types of academic programs that we are planning to look at over the next 5 years and what's the potential there. The other piece of that you saw there was roughly $40 million in administrative efficiencies that we think we can obtain as well over the next 5 years. But I think it is important that's an important piece of this where we're really trying to look at is where can we find the revenue growth.
Brian, a quick question. And it looks like a lot of good work has gone into this, and it's really interesting. You indicated that all the projections indicate that we'll continue to have a strong balance sheet, which is good. Is there likely to be a reduction in liquidity?
Not in this plan as we presented. What we're really trying to hold is we're going to hold constant the rating, and then we can see that informs then what we need in terms of a margin. I think if we saw some underperformance there, our liquidity could tighten some.
I could ask, does this factor in public dollars, and where are they, and how factor those in?
So what the plan does factor, we do, I think you didn't hear us talk a lot about it in terms of state support here. We didn't factor any large increase in state dollars in this plan. Primarily, we're looking to where we see potential for revenue growth, which really is looking at our enrollment, pricing on select programs and the types of programs we offer, along with the philanthropic effort.
You basically assumed flat or marginal increases in.
We assume flat in the plan. We didn't assume any large increase in state dollars.
Obviously, if we took a dip, that would have.
Correct. And I think the one thing we did try to do is build in some contingency into the plan of knowing that it may not even stay flat, it may decline over time.
One of your slides showed I think, if I'm reading it correctly, continuing margin at MU Health of 8%. Maybe I misread it, but is that an assumption that's built in over a period of time? Is that an assumption that the university has given Charles to work with is it built into your long-term, let's say, 5-year plan?
Yes, that is built into the plan.
Sustained at that rate.
There was a separate process that was done before we started by MU Health, and that has a lot of specifics built into that. And then we incorporated MU Health's financial plan into the system-wide financial plan.
I had not seen them project more than a year at 8% because it's so difficult to estimate. But is that one of our risk factors, is whether we can sustain that kind of exceptional revenue?
I think it's a risk. I feel, I think that's the part with all these plans, when we look at them traditionally, when I come up here and said, well, here's our budget for next year, I could just about tell you, well, I can guarantee you we're going to beat that budget and we're going to beat it significantly. And that's a different mindset, because then you would get to the end of the year and you'd say, well, we overperformed what we originally planned. We're trying to say, really, where do we think we're going to end up, and let's make the best plans we can. The MU healthcare plan, while I think it has probably risk to it and is aggressive, it doesn't have, I'm looking, I know Mike's here, but I know it doesn't have any large acquisitions or anything like that baked into it. So while I know they've got some strategic initiatives into it, I don't think it's an unreasonable plan over the next 5 years. And the one thing I would highlight is we did include the precision medicine complex is fully baked into this plan as well. So not only just the cost of capital to build the building, but the operating cost is factored in as well. Questions?
Right, if there are no other questions, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I move to recommend to the full board the approval of the fiscal year 2019 operating budget and 5-year financial plan outlined.
Could I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Chair Burnsick. We will move to the compensation.
We're not-
Research. Oh,
We have a couple more.
Two more.
okay. I jumped ahead, sorry.
I'll talk fast. The second action item approved at the June 11 Finance Committee meeting included an overview provided by Ryan of the University of Missouri fiscal year 2021 state appropriations request for operations. The Finance Committee unanimously approved the president to file a request on behalf of the University of Missouri for fiscal year 2021 state appropriations request for operations as outlined in the June 2019 Board of Curators mailing materials. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I move to recommend to the full board the approval of the fiscal year 2021 state appropriations request for operations for the University of Missouri as outlined in the materials.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next item.
All right. Ryan also presented the University of Missouri fiscal year 2021 state capital appropriations request for capital improvements, which include the Translational Precision Medicine Complex located in Columbia, Missouri, the University of Missouri Kansas City Conservatory of Music and Dance, Missouri S&T's Phase 3 addition and renovation of Shrink Hall, and University of Missouri St. Louis Space Consolidation and Infrastructure Project. The Finance Committee unanimously approved the president to file a request on behalf of the University of Missouri for fiscal year 2021 state capital appropriations request as outlined in the June materials before you. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I move to recommend to the full board the approval of the fiscal year 2021 state capital appropriations request for the University of Missouri.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair Burnsick, thank you very much. We will now move to Compensation Human Resource Committee. Chair Snowden.
Chairman, we have one item to consider in executive session this afternoon. So it will take a resolution that we go into executive session at that time to consider employee compensation issues. If I get a motion and a second from the committee.
So moved.
Darrell seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Second.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passed.
Okay, we will move on to Academic Student Affairs, Research, Economic Development, Chair Report. Chair Chapman.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. So good morning. The Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee approved 2 action items at the committee meeting on June 12, 2019. At this time, I'll ask Dr. Steve Graham to approach the podium to discuss the action items.
Thank you. I might add that both of these programs were approved unanimously by the committee. The first was a Bachelor of Arts in Constitutional Democracy. It's an interdisciplinary, interdisciplinary program on American political thought and history. It's sponsored by the Kinder Institute. It'll have a resident college sort of a environment to help students to really acclimate to the interdisciplinary nature of it. A lot of experiential learning, really unique kind of opportunity at no additional cost. The faculty already exist and are supported by the funding from the Kinder Institute. As I mentioned, receive unanimous approval during discussion. Questions? Okay. Curator Chapman, I guess.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee, I move that the University of Missouri-Columbia new degree proposal for Bachelor of Science in Constitutional Democracy be approved as outlined in the materials for this meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? We'll move to the next item.
The second program is also supported by efforts of the Kinder Institute. It's a Master of Arts in Atlantic History. Once again, kind of a unique program, 1 year in length master's program with experiential learning and study at Oxford University. Lots of great support letters, and again, no additional cost to the university. Faculty and support from the Kinder Institute is also associated with this. Give unanimous approval from the committee. Questions? I'm happy to respond. Curator.
All right. With no further questions, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee, I move that the University of Missouri-Columbia new degree proposal for the Master of Science in Atlantic History and Politics be approved as outlined in the materials for this meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Chair Chapman, is that the end of your report?
Yes, Chairman. This concludes my chair report for the Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to the Audit Committee. Chair Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit Committee has one information item. A little closer here. The Audit Committee has one information item and one action item today. Interim Chief Audit Executive Michelle Peranio will present the first information item, Internal Audit and Consulting Annual Report. Michelle will review the activity for the past year. After the presentation, she'll be available for any questions the committee might have.
Thank you. Is it backwards? Oh. First, I would like to say as an internal audit team, we feel really good about the year that we just completed. And a large part of that is due to the support we received from leadership at all of the universities and MU Health and their teams as we progressed through the year doing our work. That collaboration and teamwork is very important in delivering a relevant project to each of you. So since our July of 2018, we have completed 22 projects with an additional 16 in process for the fiscal year 2019 plan. And projects completed have been in risk areas of finance, compliance, operations, and grants management. This is an illustration of the coverage across each of the units of the UM system. And you can see from here how many assurance projects, consulting projects, and investigations that we completed. And I will say that internal audit was involved in 10 investigations this past fiscal year. This is a new kind of feature that we're reporting. And 6 of those came directly from senior leadership concerns and 4 through the hotline. And I want to inform you that we now have an investigator in internal audit who began work in April. And having this skill set has had a very positive impact on the timeliness and the depth of the investigations that we're now able to complete. So we continue to focus on encouraging multiple avenues for faculty and staff to report concerns. And it's very important to us that we complete the investigations timely because that is an indication to everyone how seriously their concerns are taken. In doing this work, we partner with HR and Title IX and Office of Civil Rights offices on the campuses and at the health system. And in addition, risk management, quality, and compliance functions at the health system. Internal audit has also validated or recommended improvement in processes in 14 operational areas. And additional support that we have provided is in our teaching in the financial competency training series that was developed by the MU Finance Division. It's an innovative approach to educating employees about fiscal responsibilities. We continue to support the Integrity and Accountability Hotline. And we also have supported this year 2 national professional organizations, the College of University Auditors and the Association of Healthcare Internal Auditors. And since our April 2019 Audit Committee meeting, we've completed 1 internal audit, 2 consulting engagements, 5 investigations. We have 1 report that is almost finalized and completed, and we're wrapping up field work for 4 additional audits. And we're in process for planning for 3 audits. And we're actively working 5 investigations. The 1 completed audit was at UMKC, the Institute for Human Development. And leadership requested this audit. They wanted us to go in and take a look after a longtime leader had departed. And the purpose was to provide assurance that financial operations are in compliance with grant requirements and university policies and procedures, and to determine whether the financial processes currently in place were adequate to support the operation of the Institute for Human Development efficiently and effectively. We did find concerns around the financial processes, particularly with how grant processes were being done, which would put the Institute at risk for grant noncompliance, and grants are their main funding source. And also that it was difficult to understand the financial condition of the Institute because of some of the gaps in the processes. But the leadership at UMKC and the Institute of Human Development are in the process of hiring a dedicated fiscal officer who will come in and revise all of these processes to be consistent with university policies and procedures. This person will have direct reporting responsibility to the Vice Chancellor of Finance through their shared services model. And I feel very good about how leadership has quickly responded to these concerns. So that concludes our look back at this past year, our annual update, and I'd be happy to answer any questions before I continue with the next part of the presentation.
The second item is an action item regarding the University of Missouri Internal Audit Risk Assessment and Fiscal Year 2020 Internal Audit Plan. Michelle will review the plan and answer any questions the committee might have.
I now present to you for your approval the proposed fiscal year 2020 Risk Assessment and Internal Audit Plan. This is a key responsibility for internal audit and consulting services, development of a flexible and comprehensive annual plan. And the main purpose is to align our internal audit resources to the areas of most concern for the organization. And we achieved this year in collaboration with senior leaders by focusing on the academic and business areas most important to achieving the compacts of excellence, and also integrating and considering what have we learned from our auditing these past few years. And again, I would like to thank all the senior leadership teams who generously took time with us to have these discussions in shaping this plan. So some highlights from the plan. This year's proposed plan, we do have 2 consulting engagements in the areas of excellence in research and creative works. As a system, our goal is to increase research, and improving these areas now will position the organization to absorb the additional increase and also strengthen our management of the inherent risks in these processes. So these consulting engagements are the back-end grants management processes. A lot of this work is already occurring through discussions with the MU Office of Sponsored Research, UMKC, UMSL, and S&T, and also work around the guidance related to intellectual property, patents, patent ownership, and royalties. These consulting engagements will be performed collaboratively with leadership in these areas and the people who do this work, the subject matter experts, and the Office of General Counsel, particularly for the one related to intellectual property, patent ownership, and royalties. The remaining higher education plan includes audits related to the other compacts of excellence and also audits in the areas of compliance. MU Health continues to operate in a pay-for-volume reimbursement environment while preparing for the shift to value-based care and population health management. So 2 major event-driven risks for MU Health this year are the growth strategies that they're pursuing and also the revenue cycle implementation conversion that they're undertaking. So we also had the same discussions around these kinds of risk-driven events with senior leadership at MU Health. So the MU Health plan addresses areas related to strategic growth, the revenue cycle implementation, compliance, and also their standards of care. This slide illustrates the coverage for the fiscal year 2020 plan. And it consists of 49 projects, 41 which are traditional audits or assurance projects, and 8 which are consulting projects. Another major engagement on this year's proposed plan is work to move us towards the ability to do continuous risk assessment. You probably noted from our last few years, we have a lot of events that occur and our risks shift and we have changes to our plan, which is to be expected. But we will begin in the fall gathering key information from departments through surveys. We want to overlay financial and performance data and results from investigations and audits and having conversations with leaders about strategic initiatives, risk, and cultures. So the end goal is really to have a process in place with more information so that as we change our plan, it really is driven by emerging events and concerns of leadership. And so once this is in place, we can move to a rolling audit plan, which would eliminate the need to cancel audits each year. We would just reprioritize and move audits up as other audits are completed or add things on as events occur or other concerns come up for leadership. So in summary, we are presenting for approval a comprehensive and flexible plan that reflects leadership concerns and knowledge from audits and investigations, and also includes areas related to strategic importance for the organization. The proposed plan includes consulting engagements with leadership to help in standardizing back-end grants management processes and guidance related to research across all 4 universities. We will also be evolving to a continuous risk assessment process and rolling audit plan. And the entire plan is provided in your packet along with recommended cancellations. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? I've got one. I will, obviously with the university's increased focus on research, could you talk a little bit more about standardizing? Because I'm sure each of the universities have different roles as far as, different policies as far as IP and things like that.
Oh, okay. Yes, this emerged as something important for us to do because as we do audits in different departments and look at grants management, we see opportunities for process improvement, and we see a lot of variability in terms of the knowledge about what should be being done and what is actually done, and we see variability in oversight of that work. So it seems to us, and leadership agreed as we had these conversations, instead of continuing to do those audits and surfacing action plans to help improve a department, what that really is doing is we're trying to optimize a process in a department when in fact it could be an entire process that needs to be improved. We want to work with the research leadership teams and the subject matter experts to identify those opportunities in that process. And then once the new process is revised, our role will be to gather that information and help everyone understand where are the process opportunities, and it will be leadership's role in the research areas to agree on how to do that. Once that's done, we would like to see that standardized across all 4 campuses. That is one process that there's no reason there should be variability, and we can improve our outcomes in that area. And for the intellectual property, patent ownership and royalties, we've had some investigations where we've seen some gaps in not having the guardrails established to support faculty in going out and doing consulting work and in having their businesses, and we want them to do that, but we need some guardrails in place for what is the relationship between doing that and their obligations to the university and remuneration to the university and when university assets are used. So we thought that would be important, again, to gather all of that. What do we currently have, what's missing, and work with the Office of General Counsel to solidify that.
Thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, may I have a motion?
I do have a question. So a couple of years ago, we took back some of the internal audit function from the former CPA. Recollecting this correctly. And
Internal audit, right.
part of that was we thought we could do it not only less expensively, but also a broader coverage of audits. In other words, they were doing limited function as internal auditing, and we were going to be able to do more. You just said a few minutes ago that we now have hired an investigator. It sounded like we hadn't had an investigator before. My question for you is, are you now comfortable that our internal audit function is operating at a higher level than previously? I mean, I think we're pleased with your work, but the question is, do you have the appropriate staffing to actually elevate? That was part of the goal, was to get a better coverage of internal audit. And the second question I have, somewhat related, is how does that apply to MU Health, which is a particularly separate and different kind of audit function than the educational audit on the university educational side? I can't remember whether we took back some of the external audit function in that arena, and that has more risk attached to it. So 2 questions.
Well, yes, I'll start with the second part. Our internal audit function, which was previously outsourced, does cover both the higher education side and the healthcare side. And we do have people who have healthcare backgrounds who do those audits on the healthcare side. The addition of the investigator was to get a really different skill set. We are having more issues surface where we need someone who can go in and who can set up how do you run an investigation in a way that you're collecting the evidence and you're interviewing the people so that you get to the bottom of what's going on. So that has been a huge help, and that's been a big improvement. The feedback I get as we go around and do our work is people are they're much more comfortable talking with us than they were with a company that was outsourced. They feel that we're part of the team, and I believe that has helped improve the collaboration and the bringing forth. People are very transparent with us as we go in to do an audit. They aren't trying to hide stuff, and they're trying to be very cooperative and collaborative because they know, I think what they've learned is in the end they're going to get a product or something that really helps them move forward. So that piece has really helped. In terms of broader coverage and resources, you can always obtain more coverage with more resources, but we also are also in the same organization as everybody else, and we're learning how to improve coverage without always defaulting to we need more resources. Would it be helpful? Yes, but in this environment, it may not be possible at this point. Hopefully, as the organization continues to grow and our revenues improve, we can get additional resources to even help cover that growth.
On the MU Health side of it, did we bring in sufficient people into our organization internally to account for the really different kinds of information coverage that causes liability on the health side? I know that we have similar issues with respect to students, but it usually doesn't generate the kind of risk that the healthcare institutions have.
So
we got
you're
sufficient-
speaking to like privacy and security issues and those things. We do have people on our staff who are very versed in privacy and security issues who are going in and doing reviews of certain systems and things. One of our audits did result in the health system choosing to hire a security person in the compliance department to improve coverage, to work collaboratively with their already privacy person to improve coverage there. And we always have the option to bring in an outside company with further technical expertise if we thought it was necessary to do some deeper dives into the systems in terms of, are the systems secure? But as far as being able to go around and audit different areas to see, are they following policy and procedure so that privacy is secured and different things like that, we do have that skill set to do that.
I should say that I think we all are appreciative of the work that you've done in compliance, and that's been a heavy part of your schedule. And I think
Thank you.
Always been satisfied with it.
Any other questions? May I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the University of Missouri fiscal year 2020 risk assessment and internal audit plan as outlined in the materials for this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Audit Committee, I move that the University of Missouri fiscal year 2020 risk assessment and internal audit plan be approved as outlined in the materials below.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Mr. Chairman, this concludes the Audit Committee business for the meeting.
Thank you very much, Chair Lehman. One house cleaning item. If I go back to Chair Snowden, I need a roll call, Cindy, to move the Comp HR Committee to executive session. If you could give me a roll call, please.
Bernstein?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we are close to lunch, but I would, if it's okay with everybody, I would love to get through the Health Affairs Chair report. And then what we'll do is, the afternoon session starts at 1:15. We'll just move that to 1:30. I just soon get to the Health Affairs now since we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I am conscious of the time, but the Health Affairs Committee met last week, June 12th, in Columbia, and had perfect attendance either by phone or in person, and we had 3 reports. We have no action items, but we had 3 reports, and I want to highlight some of the information from those reports, and then we'll turn it over to CEO Jonathan Curtright and Medical School Dean Dr. Steve Zweig to fill in the information, but they were good reports. First of all, we had a report from Jennifer May, our Chief Compliance Officer, and we are still working under the Corporate Integrity Agreement, and we are on target to complete all items required by that agreement. The Compliance Committee meets on a regular basis to address and report on risk assessments, and everything has been timely reported there. We have revised the procedures for hotline reports. The ethics compliance hotline and the bias hotline are now combined into one single portal as recommended by advisors, and 99% of all employees have received training on the code of conduct. All management level employees will be certified by June 30th as required, and all compliance monitoring and auditing projects will be completed in a timely manner. So just to conclude insofar as compliance, it is believed that the University of Missouri Health System clearly has an effective compliance program that meets all federal requirements, meets the obligations of our corporate integrity agreement, and also meets the requirements of best practices. We had a report from David Parker in the absence of Mike Blair, who was out of the country, and I think, Jonathan, you're going to cover most of those items, so I don't think that there'll be need for redundancy for me. And then Dr. Steve Zweig, who is a interim medical school dean, has only been on duty for 2.5 months, but he has really hit the ground running, and he'll report on some really good things that are happening with the medical school. With that said, Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you on report on MU Healthcare.
Thank you, Curator Graham. We appreciate the opportunity to give an annual update on the MU Healthcare performance and what our plans are for the future. The key agenda item that I'd like to talk through a little bit is our performance year to date. Once again, key focus, key area that we're constantly keeping our eye on the ball on is operational performance. What's going to be our focus now and into the future, and then Dean Zweig will give an update on now and the future for the School of Medicine as well. So that's where we're going to go. In terms of performance metrics for fiscal year 2019, our employee engagement scores continue to be very, very strong, moving to the 73rd percentile for actively engaged. We made improvements in every domain, in every work group at MU Healthcare, including the faculty, residents, and every one of our work units that's out there. Furthermore, we were just informed 2 weeks ago that we have been named Becker's Top 150 healthcare system to work in for the 3rd consecutive year. We're very proud of this, and it shows some key innovations we've made to make it so it's truly becoming the employer of choice in central Missouri. Employee engagement is very strong. In terms of quality and safety, we know that we have needed to make some significant improvements in our quality and safety, and we believe that we are making those improvements. We have 12 clinical priority areas being led by Dr. Steve Witt, Dr. Mary Beck, our CNO, and Dr. Han Cover, our Chief Quality Officer. It is our intention that these clinical priority areas, if we make major improvements in these areas, and we are, that it should have a substantive improvement in our overall quality and safety scores for MU Healthcare. In terms of some most recent contemporary data, the Vizient University Health System Quality and Accountability Study, we have the first 6 months of this performance, and we are currently ranked 27th out of 94 of our peer academic medical centers in the United States in terms of quality, safety, service, and efficiency. We were very proud of this. We want to become hardwired that will be a top quartile performer in this every single year, and we're making progress in this area. To put this into context, we were ranked 43rd last year, so some solid improvements. In terms of volumes, green is good. In terms of last year versus this year, in every one of our key domains, discharges, surgical cases, clinic visits, and adjusted patient days, we are beating both our budget and our prior year performance. Very strong performance in our volumes, and especially in the last 4 or 5 months. That we are definitely seeing an uptick in every one of our domains, and our staff are working incredibly hard to meet the needs every single day to say yes to our patients. In terms of our market share, our market share for the 25-county region, once again, we get 85% of our discharges from this 25-county region, and our market share has taken another 0.5% uptick from last year. And we believe that this will continue moving forward as several of our competitors leave the community in terms of BJC and SSM. In terms of finances, our finances year to date through May, and these are contemporary data, even more so than with the Health Affairs Committee. We have our performance in May, and year to date we're at $83.8 million on a plan of 68. And we believe that if June holds true, we will be well north of $90 million on a plan of $78 million, and our operating margin will be around 8.5% versus a plan of 7.5%. So strong performance in terms of volumes and in terms of our finances. In terms of operational excellence, I thought that I would hit a couple of key items that you all might be interested in relative to facilities. Our facilities, we are constantly trying to figure out how can we produce more volume, how can we have our facilities be more efficient so that we don't have to invest as much money in incremental and new bricks and mortar. So we have 29 hospital beds that are going to be coming online in the next 6 months. 24 of those will be in what we call an integrated unit, which is a med psych unit. So yes, for patients that have behavioral health issues, but those patients oftentimes also have medicine and surgery needs. And so this is a subspecialty. And so 24 of those beds will be coming online for patients that have psychiatry issues, but also are going to be having their medicine and surgical needs met. This is a breakthrough. It is a national best practice and something that we're very excited about. We have brought on an additional 12 emergency department rooms and continue to make a good solid progress in full implementation of our emergency department expansion. As the upper left-hand picture there shows, we have a new urgent care center, and we've been making significant improvements and growth in our ORs. We will be adding 6 operating rooms, 34 pre and post rooms, and most importantly, a CT scanner at the MOI. Why is that important? The Missouri Orthopedic Institute currently is running at about 30% occupancy rate on the inpatient setting. So we believe that there are 25 beds that we can better utilize at the Missouri Orthopedic Institute, and that CT scanner, believe it or not, was the key point on that. Outcomes on this. We're going to be making $45 to $50 million of capital improvements. This is going to allow us to have 3% growth in our discharges. And one thing that comes up frequently at the Board of Curators is, well, what about philanthropy? And what are you doing to make improvements in this area? So Dean Zweig and I are committed that we will view philanthropy as not a School of Medicine function or an MU healthcare function, but it's a combined function. And our goals will be aggregated in that regard. Well, what are the outcomes? Last year at this time, we had $8 million of philanthropy. This year to date, we have nearly $19 million. And we're going to make it so that patients that are and individuals that have an interest in healthcare, they can choose to invest in either in the academic mission or in the clinical mission. Most importantly, we often think that people are going to invest in both simultaneously. So philanthropy it has been and will continue to be a major work forward, and we work with Zach Silvers and Tom Hiles and Robert Driver on that. What about throughput? and this is basic blocking and tackling, but you always want to have your hospital discharges as quickly in the day as possible. If we can get a patient discharged by 11 o'clock or noon or 2 p.m., it's no different than a hotel. It makes it so you can get an additional bed day out of that discharge. And we've been able to have significant increases in the percentage of our patients that have been able to be discharged by each of these areas. We've gone from about 38% of our patients getting discharged by 2 p.m. to well over 50% in the last 6 months. So significant improvement in this. Furthermore, there are oftentimes people get admitted to the emergency department and they need to be observed for a period of time. Well, we're creating a bridge unit to make it so that there's a subspecialty as a 12-bed unit to observe those patients instead of having those patients go hither and yon throughout the hospital. So that's incremental capacity as well. I mentioned the Missouri Orthopedic Institute. And so all this, we're going to be, if you add up the total number of beds and the total increases that we're making in throughput over the next year, we believe that we're going to have a capacity for 60 incremental beds compared to compared to right now, compared to 1 year from now. So good, solid progress in our throughput and keeping our eye on the ball every single day in terms of our operations. What about as I said, what about our focus now and into the future? It's in 3 areas. And it's real simple, and we've said this a couple of times now. But quality and safety, we must become even more efficient, and our financial performance must be stronger, and we're working on our strategic planning process. This is how we're spending our time each and every day, and we have good, solid alignment working with the School of Medicine on this as we go forward. And I've talked a little bit about these areas. In terms of cost transformation, it is not enough to grow. Healthcare systems must grow, but they also must control their costs. We put together a $25 million goal this last year, and we hit that. And we have built into the budget, and $18 million of that $25 million will be baked into our 2020 budget. The remainder will happen over the next 1 to 2 years after that. And this is through the hard work each and every day of our executive team to make this happen. So $25 million has come out of our budget. In terms of growth, and it goes to what we talked about earlier with CFO Ryan, we are committed to an 8% margin for the foreseeable future. Maybe more importantly than that, it is our intention that we will have a $100 million bottom line moving forward. And we think we must make these investments to make it so that the University of Missouri is strong and moving forward. The decrease in our margin that is here, this is showing a little bit of the transformation of most academic medical centers over time, that there will be a degradation in your margin percentage, but we believe that we will be able to get the volume out of this and get more margin dollars to the system. Skip that one. This is not updated. In terms of academic medical center strategic planning, we're working with Kaufman Hall. Latha Ramchand and I are co-chairing the academic and the clinical work groups to look at academic health center strategic planning being overseen by Presidents Choi and Chancellor Cartwright. We're actively working through this and once again making, I think, some good solid progress in this particular area. We look forward to giving a presentation to the board at some point in the future, and this shows we've just started our work. So with that, this is a front of, I thought this is an important picture. If you go to the front of University Hospital right now, and just walk in the front door, why did so many people come here every single day, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do their thing? It's to save and improve lives. And we are committed to doing that. That's our mission. Our vision is to be Missouri's premier academic health system, and we believe that with the investments that have been made by the University of Missouri and the trust that has been given to us by the citizens, we think that hopefully we're accomplishing that each and every day, and we work to make sure that that's happening. So with that, I will hand the ball off now to Dean Zweig. And Dr. Zweig, you couldn't ask for a better partner than the Dean, so welcome.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to address you and to meet curators that I haven't had a chance to meet yet. I'll just tell you the School of Medicine feels strongly aligned with the MU Healthcare, and I couldn't ask for a better partner than Jonathan in this process. I've also really received strong support in my short tenure from Provost Ramshan and Chancellor Cartwright and President Choi to enable me to do my job. So I'm going to give you just a brief review of some elements of the School of Medicine with regard to education, clinical work, and research. So I'm really proud to announce that we've received the maximum level of accreditation from the Liaison Committee on Medical Education. We now really have a very good CQI process within the medical school to make sure that we meet and exceed those standards. We now have 3 unique programs to help both inform and prepare underrepresented minority high school students to think about healthcare careers. We've started a new program at the university called the PAUSE program to work with undergraduates and to help to prepare them and to get them to the point of being able to apply to medical school at the end of the 3rd year. And then finally, we continue to grow and support our Rural Pipeline program, which is really a nationally recognized and successful program with efforts of bringing rural Missouri students into medicine and getting them back into rural communities. Just to give you a little idea about the progress we've made in terms of changing the diversity of our medical school class. Over the last 2 years, the percent of matriculated minority students has more than doubled. And between 2015 and 2019, we have 4 times as many underrepresented minority applicants as we had previously. An update on the Springfield campus. Just this past week, we started 28 new third-year medical students in the Springfield campus. Things are going well. I'm going down to visit with folks on Friday, and our associate dean down there has done a great job of recruiting faculty. This is really an outstanding collaboration of the School of Medicine, Cox Health, and Mercy Hospital in Springfield. We have the match every year. That's the process of connecting graduating medical students with residency training programs. 98% of our residents match, which exceeds the national average, and 38% of those students will remain in Missouri for their residency training. This just switching now to sort of to the clinical side, this gives you an idea that at the School of Medicine, we're trying to keep up and complement with the growth of the health system by recruiting and hiring new clinical faculty. In fact, this year we will set a record high of $220 million in physician revenue. Here's an update on the research data. On the left side of the screen shows all sponsored activities. We've exceeded over 41 million in externally funded sponsored activities and over 20 million in NIH expenditures. Obviously, the big thing going on our campus is the construction of the Translational Precision Medicine Complex, or the Precision Health Initiative. And there's a groundbreaking, as you know, tomorrow. And I think this is really going to help to promote our research efforts in cancer, neurosciences, and cardiovascular disease across not only the MU campus, but across the UM system as well. I'm going to show you a few slides on research because that's, I know, a high priority. We've been working hard to develop our strategic plan for research and figuring out ways of bringing people together, building infrastructure, and moving forward. We've created profiles now in over 200 of our medical school faculty that do research. I've met with almost every department now to hear what the issues are with regard to their faculty. And we've been working with campus on appropriate utilization of space and how we can work that more effectively in the future. Secondly, with regard to rebuilding infrastructure, we're working to redesign the Tiger Institute Research Collaborative. We've already been working again on reorganizing Dean's Office sponsored research infrastructure. There's a whole lot of things that the Dean's Office does to help to promote research. And then finally, we are creating a advisory committee of active researchers to oversee the decisions we're making and to help to provide guidelines in the future. Collaborating is a big part of building research and being successful in that way. And right now, there's a consultation ongoing to determine health system contribution to academic support. We continue to plan with the other deans on our campus and to connect with faculty in the School of Medicine with regard to the TPMC. And we have, as I'll talk about in a subsequent slide, working to develop a comprehensive cancer research center. A couple of weeks ago, we had a research retreat with all of the chairs and vice chairs of research, including our provost, to help to identify the areas that we need to move forward on and to develop task forces in those areas. And as Jonathan mentioned, we have ongoing strategic planning with the health system and with the campus to develop a way forward. And finally, we're really looking at strategic investing in an important way. I'm currently reviewing all existing chair plans and investments. We've already created a funds flow team to evaluate the hiring of new tenure track faculty. We're developing a new umbrella program that is a much more modern version of a PhD program in translational biosciences. We're really looking at all chair hires, in fact, all faculty hires from a strategic perspective. There's a lot of details on this slide. You can read them in your handout if you like, but what this shows is 10 different programs that have been submitted that include School of Medicine faculty, most of the time in collaboration with other MU faculty, to the UM system process to build research infrastructure. And so 10 of these Tier 1 and Tier 2 proposals have made the first cut. And then finally, we're investing in a plan to evaluate a path for National Cancer Institute designation for a research center. So we have, we're developing an infrastructure that enables us to strengthen our clinical trials program, flesh out the infrastructure required for such a center, developing a strategic plan over the next 5 years for investing in cancer research, and pursuing a partnership with an existing federally certified National Cancer Institute Research Center so that we can move forward in this process. That's all.
Any questions of CEO Kurt Wright or Dr. Zweig?
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Zweig. I think the second from the last slide, the applications for strategic research support, and you'd said that it's mostly within the MU group. I'm sure that a lot of them are also in multiple academic research. But my question of you, and you've only been in your chair, acting chair, for a couple of months, but has the translational precision initiative, in your view, caused there to be increased interest in collaboration broadly within the system, because there are 2 medical schools in the system? So has that caught your attention, and what is your view of the faculty's receptiveness to doing joint research?
Sure. No, I think it's been an absolute catalyst to try to constellate interest in those research areas across our whole system. And our faculty, like faculty anywhere, recognize that to be successful and competitive for national research grants, we have to be multidisciplinary, and we have to have teams that bring different things to the table. So I think it's been a great initiative to stimulate that sort of potential collaboration. And the neat thing about these projects is that no matter what happens, those collaborative relationships have been developed, and work in many of them will go forward, whether those people end up practicing or doing their research in the TPMC or not.
And beyond the medical school, there are other opportunities within the system, including Rolla, for example,
Absolutely.
where our nuclear program, I guess,
Absolutely.
is now housed. Thank you. Good answer. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, comments? If not, that concludes the information items for the Health Affairs committee. The minutes that are there for an action item have already been approved, so we don't address that. So, Mr. Chairman, that does complete the report of the Health Affairs Committee. I do want to make a real quick personal observation, and I suspect that the members of the board will also make that same observation. There is definitely a new strength, to use your word. There is definitely a new strength and vitality in the working relationship and the work that's being done between MU Healthcare and the medical school. And I think we're going to see that continue, and it's really exciting.
Thank you, Chair Graham. On schedule now, we have lunch. So what we will do, we'll have lunch 12:30 to 1:30, and we'll start the session this afternoon at about 1:40, 1:45. So thank you very much.